And how is it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 75 of the Paws Up podcast. I understand we haven't done an episode of the pod in a hot minute. Not to say we haven't been busy, because we sure as hell have with the football coverage, basketball getting underway, and there's still a lot of stuff coming up ahead. But wow, we're 75 episodes in. That's 3/4 of the way to 100, Kevin. I hope you realize that. But I'm Jay Gibson, and that's Kevin Barral, my friend and co-host. And oh my gosh, Kevin, these last 24 hours have been nothing short of ridiculous as far as breaking news through the world of FIU football. And that's what this episode is going to be primarily about today. What the hell has gone on in these last 24 hours, including today with transfer portal news, coach hunting for FIU, and maybe some stuff in between. Kevin, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty tired, I will say. I think it's been a lot of writing these last 24 hours, but no, here for it. We'll talk about it, of course. Usually with 75 we were trying to get a guest, but unfortunately just didn't work out. We didn't really want this all this news and all this football talk to really slip through the cracks to a point where we just didn't make sense to record it anymore. I know we went live. Well, we're recording this on Tuesday, so we went on Monday. I'm sorry, so we went live on Sunday when this news, literally the second it dropped. We gave some good points, but I think now we've had time to sit on it, look at some candidates. Obviously, I've been hearing some stuff, so I definitely want to share that here from when I can share. So we'll see. But yeah, a lot to talk about, definitely, especially with the transfer portal and who's in the transfer portal, who may stay, who may not, because obviously just because you enter the portal doesn't mean you're official. Well, yeah, you are technically no longer on the team, but there's a chance you could come back. And I think that could be the case with some guys.
Yeah, for sure. Without a doubt. Now, before we really get into all that, I think something we can do, Kevin, because there's obviously not going to be another Pause Up preview for the football season, is talk a little bit about FIU's win over Middle Tennessee. It was a fun game, all things considered, Kevin. FIU wins by a score of 35-24. Offensively, the Panthers played some really good ball. They started off super hot. And while they kind of slowed down in the second half, they still got that clutch touchdown to pretty much seal the game. Defense was good, too. Shut out Middle Tennessee in 2 quarters. And while the Blue Raiders obviously have a great passing offense, they denied them when they had to, including forcing a missed field goal and pretty much icing the game from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were going into that game kind of looking at certain individual stats, obviously with Kiwan, trying to see how far it could get into the passing touchdowns for a single season, and he finishes at the moment his FIU career second on that list, behind James Morgan, who had 26 passing touchdowns in 2018. Kiwan ended the season with 22, tied for first in Conference USA at the moment. Obviously, with Caden Veldkamp going to the Conference USA championship game, he will probably surpass Jenkins in that category. Kiwan was also named the Offensive Player of the Week, funny enough. I did vote for him in that award for this week. So, yeah, we're looking at that. Obviously, Eric Rivers getting the record that Chris Mitchell literally set on the final game of the season last year. Most receiving yards in a single season. Now that record stands at 1,172 yards. Maybe Juju Lewis, if he sticks around, could break that next season, depending who his quarterback is. And then obviously, Travion Barnes, who also entered the transfer portal. He was, I believe, just 13 tackles away from breaking that record. Unfortunately, didn't break it, but got very close. Finished with 129. So still pretty good. Obviously missed a game in the season due to some medical issues. So, yeah, man, overall, couldn't have asked for a better game. Good way for these guys to go out. Thankfully, it's a good way for Mac to go out, too, with a win, at least against Middle Tennessee, a team that FIU hadn't beat since 2018. So, overall, couldn't have asked for a better day. Senior day, it was pretty good vibes for the most part. A little bit of tension, obviously. You knew exactly what was going to happen the next day. I think we had a pretty good idea of it. And, what was going to ensue no matter what, if McIntyre stayed or not, because we knew this was going to happen. There was a lot of talent on this team. But, it was a good way to just kind of wrap the season up, enjoy it.
Yeah, and a lot of records were broken, but one of my favorite aspects of that game was seeing Devontae Lyons get 101 rushing yards. He's the only player in a game this season to get over.
And he hasn't entered the portal.
And he got a touchdown as well. Shout out Lions. He's just been such a great asset to this team since they started to roll him out in that Jack State game. And I mean, he has so much potential. I can't wait to see maybe he's secured his spot as a day one starter next season, considering, well,
Yeah.
about that what we're about to talk about. But no, Devontae Lyons had a great game, and I'm excited to see more of him next year.
Yeah, definitely. Devontae Lyons. I did hear some reports that some people have been telling him to hit the portal. I don't think he will. But I think this is a guy who, in the right situation, depending who they hire to be the next head coach, and we'll go through the candidates, which are some pretty good ones that will help him out for sure. If you look at some of these guys' backgrounds, he could definitely stick around and he would be the lead back. So we'll see what happens there. And yeah, this is a fun guy to watch. I mean, if there's one thing that Mike McIntyre did very well was recruit. And with the limited sample size that he did have, because again, you're going up against some really good schools, but Lyons, he was offered some very good offers in the P5 landscape at the time, Miami being one of those teams, and he chose FIU, and it's definitely paid off.
Alrighty then, while we can, because again, there's not going to be a preview anymore for football. Let's go over what the hell happened last week and set up the championship game here. It's basically this week in CUSA. FIU beats Middle Tennessee. That was awesome. Louisiana Tech shut out Kennesaw. Damn.
First time ever Kennesaw gets shut out too.
That's crazy. But we knew how good Louisiana Tech's defense was, but to put a zero burger on a Kennesaw team, granted they don't have their head coach, they don't have a lot of people, but still, I think that's very shocking, Kevin. But these last two games were actually really good. UTEP beats New Mexico State by a score of 42-35 in Las Cruces. I had a really good feeling about that UTEP game, and they proved me right. So good on them. And then,
that's the championship.
That's pretty much it. Jack State, Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers were I think they were trailing for the majority of this game, Kevin. But they come back, win it. So it's just like that. We have set up our championship game. Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State at Jacksonville, Alabama on Friday, December the 6th it says 6, it's actually 7 p.m. That's going to be on CBS Sports Network. Yeah, who will win? Who
are you taking?
This
is going to count towards our predictions.
Yes. I'm gonna calculate our predictions, see how we finished in the regular season. But yeah, this championship game, and just for the hell of it, the bowl games that CUSA teams are in, that'll be added up too. So here's the thing, Kevin. It was cool to see Western Kentucky beat Jacksonville State. However, they have to do it again. I mean, it's hard as hell to beat this Jack State team with the offense they have. To do it once is an accomplishment. To do it twice, especially at their stadium, I think is impossible. I'm taking Jacksonville State.
I agree. Give me the Gamecocks. They were very close to winning. I don't think. Well, I'm not going to say they weren't trying, but they definitely knew they really didn't matter. It just mattered what opponent they would face, and they're going to be facing a pretty damn good one with Caden Veltkamp and what they've been able to do. But I think Western Kentucky is going to have a good chance to run the ball, something they've struggled doing all season. Mm-hmm. But again, Jacksonville State struggles to stop the pass. But then you look at it on the other side of things, and Jacksonville State has Trey Stewart and Tyler.
He's
Huff.
A game changer. They're both
Tyler Huff plays. Tyler Huff was injured, so we'll see what happens there. But nonetheless, they still have Trey Stewart. They have a really good receiver. Vaughn. I feel very good about my pick going with Jacksonville State.
So, Kevin, season standings wise, for this week, it was week 14. I went 4-1. Kevin, you went 3-2. We both messed up taking Liberty over Sam Houston. Whoopsie. But you also took Jack State over Western. And I don't blame you because that game could have gone either way. And it looked like the Gamecocks were going to win. But
it's okay.
It is what it is.
Gamecocks are going to get their revenge next week.
I think so, too. Season standings wise, I finished up with 59-20. You went 52-27, but again, there's still time to make this up with the CUSA championship game and then even some bowl games with CUSA opponents. There's like, four? I think 4 conference teams bowl eligible. So
four.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So, all right, let's get into some FIU football news. Back at it. Starting off with Coach Mike McIntyre no longer being on the team. We already spoke about this. Literally the moment it was announced, we hopped on a recording, talked a bit about this, Kevin, but just now that the dust has settled, what are your thoughts on how it all wrapped up? I wouldn't say there was any drama involved with the coach departing compared to like what we saw with Butch Davis when he was still on the FIU football team. But Scott Carr released a statement not long after we dropped, and some players and obviously a lot of fans have shared their thoughts, most of it being positive news. Just when the dust has settled, how do you think this all ended up?
Yeah, just start finding the statement so you can read it off once while I talk here. But
Yes, sir.
there was drama, and that there's no finding your way around that. There was. I mean, he said what he said about the history of the football team, and then the allegations by linebacker Reggie Peterson, who has since entered the transfer portal, said. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I don't know how much that maybe ramped up this decision, but from just reading that and knowing what I had heard, I definitely think, things weren't going well in the McIntyre era. And again, nothing against Coach Mack. He's been great to you. He's been great to me. But I do think there's time for there was a need for a change. And I'm glad this is happening to a certain extent. Obviously, you never hate to see a guy lose his job, and you never want that because he's a normal working guy just like we are. But there a new voice was needed, I think, honestly. And we'll see what happens in terms of who ends up coming back from the transfer portal, who doesn't, what happens in the recruitment. Because literally in about 48 hours, these recruits are going to have to sign with FIU if they want to or not. And from what I understand, some of them are currently undecided. Walt Villa, who put out an article today, noted two guys, Kenny Williams and Tyson Carter, I believe is the other guy's name, two wide receivers who most likely I don't think will end up signing. They were there because they wanted to play under Jay McIntyre. They've seen what Jay McIntyre was able to do. So fortunately, those are two guys who will not be, probably signing with FIU. We'll see about the rest of Amari Isaac. Sterling Joseph, brother Flex. I did speak to him. He's currently undecided. He still says he needs to figure it out. But, his brother Flex did go through a coaching change himself once at FIU. So who knows? But aside from that, I think it was time for a change. I'm excited to see who's going to be the next guy. I think for us, it's going to be pretty cool. We'll have a guy from day one. Obviously, you were there for day one of Mac. I kind of wasn't. I kind of joined during his first season, but
you were basically there for day one. You did all the coverage needed, But I meant drama, by the way, as in that there was nothing said from McIntyre after the news.
Yes, there wasn't nothing. I'm surprised, and to be honest with you, I am a little surprised.
Yeah,
but usually you do see this from head coaches. They don't really say much until maybe if they do land another job. I'm assuming Mike will at some point either land an analyst job or maybe even a defensive coordinator job somewhere else. So we'll see what happens. I am sure most of the coaching stuff will get a job too. Right now, Jovan DeWitt is the interim. So he has to deal with the rest of the signing class and whatever's left.
Here's the statement from FIU Athletics. I think our show ended at 4 o'clock. We wrapped up at 4 o'clock when this was announced, and at 4:23, this was dropped on the FIU Athletics website. FIU Director of Athletics Scott Carr announced on Sunday that the head football coach Mike McIntyre would no longer be leading the program. Quote, I want to thank Mike for pouring 3 years of his heart and soul into the program and for solidifying the foundation, said Carr. Coach Mack inherited a challenging situation 3 years ago, but he improved numerous areas within the program, from posting our highest ever GPA to bettering the operations and budgets, and the culture shift has been evident. This was a decision based solely off on-field results. And at this time, I felt our program needed to go in a different direction. While we have been more competitive on the field each of the last 3 seasons, unfortunately, our win-loss record is not indicative of those statistical improvements. Winning championships and bowl games is our goal. With that standard in place, a comprehensive national search for a new head coach will begin immediately, and I will have no further comment until that process is completed. While that search takes place, defensive coordinator Jovan DeWitt has been named the Panthers' interim head coach. I'm guessing it must be pretty weird to be named an interim head coach when the season is over. What would be DeWitt's responsibilities while being the interim when there's nothing really going on? I mean, you have the signing.
Well, I literally told you before we started reading that he has to make sure that the signing class is dealt with and they're going to be able to get these guys in. So he definitely still has a lot of responsibilities, and that's why you named the interim in this case. So I some little breaking news on the podcast. Kenny Williams, who had literally just mentioned, So I just mentioned he is going to be honoring his commitment to sign with FIU. He just reposted that on Twitter.
That's awesome.
So huge news coming out of the recruiting cycle. Kenny Williams, I'm going to search him up right now on 247 Sports. That does a great job of finding, covering everything that they do over there. So he had
3-star receiver from Gulliver Prep. Damn.
A 3-star receiver with a couple offers. FIU, App State, James Madison, Wagner in West Virginia. Worth noting, App State coach Sean Clark was fired. So
yeah.
I'm not exactly sure who may have offered Williams in this case, but if it is Frank Ponce, obviously that's something to keep in mind, and we'll talk about Frank in a bit because Mr. Ponce here is a big Miami guy. So we'll talk about him soon. But yeah, DeWitt definitely still has a lot. From what I understand, the whole coaching staff is still at FIU. They're still doing their jobs. They're still working day to day like normal.
Even Jay?
Jay McIntyre is the only one that's not with FIU right now.
There you go.
So yes. I will say that. Well, I don't know about Jay. I can't confirm that or deny that right now.
Okay.
But I would assume, given that his dad literally got fired, he's not there. That's just an assumption.
Yeah.
My understanding is, though, that the rest of the coaching staff is there trying to find, knock out this recruiting class. And obviously they have to. So a lot of the defensive players are expected to sign. I'm not sure about the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, huge one with Kenny Williams, a 3-star. We're still waiting on, obviously, guys like Amari Isaac and Sterling Joseph. Sterling Joseph would be a huge one to get for FIU as well as Isaac.
So I do want to highlight one quote from this entire article from FIU Athletics. This was a decision based solely off on-field results. I'm not going to stand here and question what Scott Carr said. It's literally right there for you to read. But how accurate do you think that statement is, Kevin? Only on-field results. I mean, off the field, that's been an adventure for Mike McIntyre and this FIU program. Do you buy it? Do you think there's some validity to both sides? Just what's your take on that?
Look, I don't think you want first Scott, amazing guy. Just
absolutely
let's get that out of the way. He's a great guy. I'm sure we're going to have him on the podcast once the new coach is hired to talk a little bit about that. But
his first new hire, or actually, I guess
second,
because the first was Mike. Yeah.
Well, I think the only coach he's ever. Well, no, he's hired two. Mac and Witten.
Oh, and
this
Rich
is his
Witten.
First ever firing. So
correct.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens after that.
This is coach number 3 for him. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Actually, I'm very excited to see who he brings. But so there's obviously some. That's true to a certain extent. I don't think it was only the on-field stuff because in college football, that's not the only thing that matters. Honestly, it's how you recruit, who you're able to bring in, how the money is being used, how you do in the transfer portal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of off-field stuff that obviously goes into the job of a college football coach. But I think it is worth keeping in mind that maybe that I don't think that's entirely true, but it is worth noting. Mike went 4-8 for 3 straight seasons. He failed to win a game on the road in 2024. They literally lost 2 games on the road, so they have an 8-game losing streak at the moment.
Yeah.
They lost to an FCS team, a team that had won a single game, and a team that had won 1 single game. So you're looking at it, and they also lost 5 one-score games in 2024. And you still did not beat Florida Atlantic when you really should have this season. So
really should have.
I think rivalry games are huge in college football, so that's something to keep in mind there. And look at what happened. FAU's now looking for a new coach. They got one, actually. They have their new coach. Trying to find where that report was, but they do have a new coach. It's the Texas Tech offensive coordinator, which is huge news. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I do agree with you. I don't think that's totally true because obviously the off-field stuff is kind of what took over social media and maybe even a lot of thoughts about Coach McIntyre. But I do think the on-field part of it is totally true. I mean, you can't go 4-8 for 3 straight seasons. This was a team on paper, Jake, and we said we were going to do a season in review art thing, but I think this kind of takes over.
This is basically it. It's what it's turned into.
Yeah. So you look at this team. This is a team that should have won 7 to 8 games on paper. Now, how much of the 4-8 do you kind of factor into the coaching or actual players? But who knows?
Now, Kevin, you've been busy as hell dropping articles on SI since all this news broke out. I do want to highlight one of them, and it's something I'd like your opinion on. You talked about 5 names to keep in mind about the FIU football head coaching search. This blew up. This article blew up, Kev, and the names here: Tim Harris Jr., UCF offensive coordinator and receivers coach, a former running backs coach and OC for FIU. You have Willie Simmons, the running backs coach for Duke. You have Frank Ponce, who is the OC and quarterbacks coach of App State and is an FIU grad and a assistant coach when Cristobal was here. You have James Coley, I believe that's how you say it, the assistant head coach of Georgia and the wide receivers coach, who is from South Florida. He was from the Miami Dolphins and was a OC and quarterbacks coach for FIU. He's been all over. He's been over a lot of colleges. And last but not least, Scott Frost, who, I mean, gosh, that's one of the bigger names that could be for hire for the Panthers. So just all things considered here, Kevin, talk a bit about why you think these coaches are could be potentially be good fits for FIU and which one you're really leaning on.
So I'll add 2 more names to that. Pat Surtain, who is right now, I believe, the defensive backs coach over at Florida State.
Okay.
That's a name that's been mentioned a little bit. So has Jovan DeWitt. I think he'll get the interview. I'm not sure if he'll get the job, but I certainly know they'll at least give him a courtesy interview. But yeah, so a lot of these guys were interviewed the first time around. It needs to be noted. So Frank Ponce, Tim Harris Jr., I believe Willie Simmons was interviewed. All 3 of those guys were interviewed. So was Jovan DeWitt, and so was Coley. For the job. So the only one there that has not been interviewed is Scott Frost, technically, in that list. So Scott Frost, just let's keep that out of the way. Let's just put this very clear. That is the slam dunk dream hire for FIU athletics.
Yeah.
If they're able to get Scott Frost, don't even bleep this out. Holy shit. That's all I'm going to say. Scott Frost would be the mega hire of mega hires for FIU. Immediately would be the top hire for FIU. That would be the best hire they've made, honestly, ever, aside maybe from Cristobal. So that would be a huge one. Now, again, is it going to happen? I don't know, because the UCF job's open. He could certainly go back there and try to maybe make up for what he did at Nebraska, which didn't go very well for him. And again, I mean, FIU's a tough place. It's not tough to win in if you do it the right way. And yes. I certainly think NIL's certainly been a factor in that.
Yeah.
But again, Scott Frost would be the dream. That's why I kind of put him at the bottom. I don't think it's going to happen, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if at least there's some sort of contact with him. Now, the real part of this list starts at Tim Harris Jr. I like Tim Harris Jr. a lot.
I do too.
He interviewed for the job. He's very, very, very well liked down here in South Florida. Former FIU offense coordinator. Didn't go very well that season. But I do think it needs to be noted that I don't exactly know. Jake, maybe you could tell me. Was Tim Harris Jr. at FIU in 2021?
He was the he was promoted to the OC in 2021. Okay, because I don't know if he played the I don't know if he was part of the full season.
Okay, that may be that may be it, because UCF did bring in Harris as part of their staff in 21, where they went 9-4. So, and unfortunately, this season for him as the OC, it didn't go very well, as we know. I believe they went 4-8 over there at UCF.
Yes,
but overall, this is a guy who's been all around. He's an elite, a great recruiter. That would be the huge thing here. I mean, if you're gonna bring him in, it's because you are banking on your recruits, bringing in some big time recruits. Who knows? Maybe you finally get a 4-star here at FIU. But no, man, that would be a great hire. A very likable guy. He knows the FIU well. He was here for a very long time. The other guy, obviously, Frank Ponce. He's been all around, the college landscape. Started at high schools, coaching out there. He actually coached in my old high school, Coral Reef.
Hey,
so that would be a pretty fun hire, just because that's something cool to connect on with a coach, obviously. And
involved with T.Y. Hilton. That's the big
he was a big time. He was a big part of T.Y. Hilton's career. He was there for the entirety of it. So that's pretty cool. And he's been around App State for a bit. He was around the glory years of App State. Only had one losing season in his first stint there. He went to a couple bowl games, made the Sun Belt Championship game. He won that under App State. Recently, He was at Louisville. He was the quarterbacks coach and pass game coordinator at Miami in Cristobal's first season over there. And then obviously came back to, not obviously, but he did come back to App State where he spent a couple seasons, and we'll see what happens. Maybe he gets interviewed for the job there at App State because Sean Clark now fired there. So some competition. That's a really good job over there in Boone. So we'll see what happens there. And I think the other one I mentioned there was Willie Simmons. I personally think Willie Simmons is the favorite to get the job. Just what I've been hearing early on. Seems like a guy that's really been mentioned around a lot. Willie Simmons, FAMU, he's been around for a very long time. He's mostly known for what he's did at Florida A&M, which, if you don't know, it's like 9-win seasons in a row. Ended the season going, I think, 12-1, winning the SWAC. He was the coach of the year in 2023. Very, very, very good coach. He knows how to win. He's won at the FCS level before.
Right.
He's now at Duke. So he was at Duke as their running backs coach under Manny Diaz. He knows Conference USA well. He was at Middle Tennessee for a very long time. He was an offensive coordinator at Middle Tennessee. So there's probably not. I don't think he ever faced FIU at Middle Tennessee, but certainly a guy who has a very decorated background and certainly would be someone who has experience, compared to someone like a Tim Harris and a Frank Ponce who'd never been head coaches at the collegiate level. Yeah. So then finally, James Coley, who, as you mentioned, Miami Dolphins offensive analyst at some point. He was at FIU for a bit.
He's been at so many colleges.
He's been everywhere. And it would be a pretty good hire. He's currently at Georgia as the wide receivers coach and assistant coach. So that would be a pretty cool one. I know he was interviewed the last time around, and we already spoke about Scott Frost, but I think the other, as I mentioned, Jovan DeWitt did get the interview last time when McIntyre was hired, but they brought him in as a DC. And then obviously, I mentioned Pat Surtain, which has been with the Dolphins, was with Florida State. I believe he was at Miami too for a bit.
Yes.
So that would be a pretty cool hire. And I know he was considered for the FAU job at one point, I think. He was also maybe considered for the UCF one. We'll see where he ends up. But I think really good candidates nonetheless. Really wouldn't be like against any. Obviously, if they hire someone like a Tim Harris or a Willie Simmons, I'll be very happy. I would be ecstatic if they bring in Scott Frost because Scott Carr has a connection with Scott Frost. So that helps you out a little bit, but we'll see what happens. Scott Frost has a chance to go back to UCF, and I think that would be a little bit difficult for him to pass up if he decides to come back to the collegiate level. He's currently at the NFL level with the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah. We've been going in it already, and we still have a big subject to talk about, but I think it's time for a break, Kevin. What do you think?
Let's do it. I need to break myself.
Yeah, there you go. Let's get into Jake's news break, talking about all things FIU athletics and just FIU in general. It's been a while since we've done this. I'd like to start off with FIU men's basketball, who technically not related to FIU specifically, but the assistant head coach, Joey Rodriguez, VCU legend, had his jersey number retired by the VCU alma mater back on Friday evening. Joey Rodriguez is, again, the assistant head coach here at FIU. He was part of the VCU coaching staff along with Jeremy Ballard. Before that, he was a player for VCU and was part of that miraculous Final Four run for the VCU Rams back in 2011. He averaged, I think, a little over 9 points per game during that stretch specifically. He also played professionally in Puerto Rico and Turkey, among some areas. So congratulations to Rodriguez. It's such an honor I can't imagine the honor it is to see your name hung up in the rafters of an arena for the work you did, but it must be a great feeling. So congrats to him. Now, moving on to men's and women's soccer, some all tournament teams for the American, as well as the college sports communications, CSC academic all district teams were given out. And of course, FIU, with the great seasons that both men's and women's had some big time names on both sides of the ball, starting with Michael Apia and Joao Dominguez, Eduardo Mustre, and Nigel Van Heveren, making the men's soccer all-tournament team for their efforts for the American Athletic Conference. And then for women's soccer, you have Catherine Rapp, Elizabeth Rapp, Reagan Bridges, Deborah Bienaim, and then Camille Sahiro. All made the CSC academic all-district team. So congratulations to all those players for the work they did on and off the field. And then finally, if you go to YouTube right now and go to Mr. Beast, I think we all know about Mr. Beast, but if you go to his YouTube channel and check out his most recent video, one of the first segments of a sports competition video that he did, Tom Brady, TB12, the GOAT, whatever you want to call him, competed against Jake, the quarterback of Cypress Bay High School, right here at Pitbull Stadium. We noticed it immediately. This must have been well in advance. I think that was the Sunblazer paint job on the field, but it's just one part of a video that featured a ton of stars such as Cristiano Ronaldo and Bryce Harper, and it's Tom Brady's segment alongside Mr. Beast, and the quarterback of Cypress Bay High School was at Pitbull Stadium. So I think it's worth giving it a quick look. You can find it as the most recent video on Mr. Beast's YouTube channel. So that was an interesting look at Newsbreak. That was a crazy video, Kevin. You had Bryce Harper going up against. It wasn't the Rizzler. Who was it? In that video,
Big Justice.
There you go. It was Big Justice. So, all right. I think the time has come, Kevin. This whole segment, by the way, is not conclusive because by the time this episode drops, we might have some more names who have fallen into the transfer portal. But I have never seen an FIU football squad be ravaged more from the transfer portal than what we have seen so far, Kevin. My gosh, where do we even start? Let's check out On3 and see the names that are currently there. Again, hopefully this is up to date. If it's not, Kevin, please fill us in on who's not here. We knew about Reggie ahead of time. Nair Jackson, Travis Burke, John Bach. That's already 3 big names on the offensive line. Dean Patterson and Eric Rivers, the 1-2 duo of FIU's offense. You have Jarius Lee, Jackson Lee. That's interesting. Nana Burris, and then Kewan Jenkins enters the transfer portal. Oh, my gosh. Hezekiah Masses and Travion Barnes. Travion Barnes, again, just literally every single big-name player you can probably think of for FIU football has either graduated or is now in the portal. And then you have Rocky Beers, who did not play a whole bunch this season, but regardless. Oh, my God, Kevin. I like I said, I've never seen an FIU football squad ravaged more by the transfer portal. You throw a name on the board of this FIU roster, chances are they're not going to be on this team next season.
Yeah. From what I understand, a lot of these guys were going to enter if McIntyre stayed or not. So I don't think that's a factor in a lot of this, especially with guys like Travion Barnes, Eric Rivers. Kewan definitely surprised me a little bit because I understood that maybe they were going to try to keep him, and I still think that's going to be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe withdraws from the portal at some point. Obviously, depending who the new head coach is, but you need to have a quarterback to succeed, and I still do believe that they have that quarterback. Clayton Dees is on this roster, so is Mari Jones, Jaden Peary. I believe all 3 will end up staying, if I had to guess. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. Kewan definitely a tough one. Eric Rivers, that's going to happen no matter what. I mean, the guy broke the record. He's really good. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. Dean Patterson took me by surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming. He was the first one, too. And Travion didn't surprise me. Which one other surprised me? Let me see.
How about the old line? Nair, Travis, and Bach.
Burris surprised me. Nana Burris.
Yeah.
He didn't play too much, only 8 games. Didn't put up much numbers. He was good, but I thought he could have been a good target this season. I thought he could have been a nice partner with, not partner, duo with Juju Lewis, who I do expect to stay. Jackson Lee, the long snapper, entered the portal. I mean, the whole offensive line is in the portal. John Bach, J.D. Lee, Travis Burke, Nair Jackson, and then Ben Schellenbach graduated. So all 5 of them are gone. So you're going to have a completely new offensive line. That group allowed the least amount of sacks in Conference USA. So pretty cool stat overall. The ones that they didn't mention on here, Shamari Lawrence and Keyshawn Owens both entered the transfer portal. Tough losses, but again, there was a very crowded backfield. I expected either one of them to enter the portal or both of them. So both of them entered. Once I saw Kewan enter, I kind of had a feeling Keyshawn would enter the portal. Devontae Lyons is yet to enter. I don't think you will. But again, nothing I should really be surprised about. I am surprised someone like Brian Blades hasn't entered the portal. I'm expecting him maybe to at some point enter. I don't know. But again, I think it needs to be noted, Jake, and this is important. Although they entered the portal does not mean they can't withdraw. They could withdraw and come back to FIU. I think that will happen with a couple of these guys. Depending who the next head coach of FIU football is going to be, maybe it's enough to bring them back. Maybe if certain position coaches are back, they will be back. So we'll see what happens. But again, yes, you are 100% correct. It is crazy that these amount of players have entered. But again, should we be surprised? I don't think so.
When a head coach gets fired, all hell breaks loose as far as players' commitments to teams. This is nothing new. By the way, shout out Jackson Lee. Why is Jackson Lee special to the Paws Up podcast, Kevin?
He was like our first Paws Up on location, right?
There you go. The first ever athlete we ever had on our Paws Up on location series. But best of luck to him. I don't know how fierce the long snapper market is in the transfer portal, but from the time he spent here, he's pretty good. He did his job well. So that happens there. Is it wrong for me, Kevin, to say that I'm not too surprised that Keyjuan Jenkins entered the transfer portal, especially after he saw that literally all the talent around him, from the O-line to his receivers to even his running backs, entered the portal, that he himself said, you know what? If I were to return, the offense that I was accustomed to and I would assume loved being part of this season is going to be completely different. So he's going to try his luck elsewhere. And he's put up the stats to the point where he could be considered by P4 teams in college football.
Yeah, I mean, the Keyjuan one, the only reason it took me by surprise is because I thought maybe the new coach would not even just convince him to stay, but he would just stay, see how it plays out. He would still have another year of eligibility to play out. Worst comes to worst, good to go to a P5, P4, as you said. But no, Keyjuan definitely is going to have some sort of advantage on the market. He had 2 very good seasons in Conference USA, a very good one last season. He was one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the conference. He's a quick guy. He's not very tall, unfortunately, but I don't think that's going to play much of a factor. He got a lot stronger, as we know, and he has a good arm, so he's very, very accurate as well. So with that being said, I could see maybe somewhere he goes to a very good group of 5 team, like maybe a Memphis or a Tulane or even like a UNLV, who knows?
Yeah.
Or he could go to a low-end Power 5 school. Now, I'm not saying Miami's a low-end one, but they don't have Cam Ward next season. So it never hurts to bring in someone like a Keyjuan to compete and see if he could earn a job there. But I don't know how UM fans would react to that. Maybe he could go somewhere like an FSU, go behind DJ Lagway for a season, then go in. Or go to Auburn, where he was originally committed. So, again, definitely a lot of ways for Keyjuan. He definitely has an advantage in this market. Really only one big-name quarterback in the market, which is Miller Moss, who entered portal from USC. And I want to say the Virginia quarterback entered the portal as well. That was a very good one. So, again, we'll see what happens. I really can't say much more. I mean,
yeah,
that one definitely tough. Like when I open my phone and I get the text, Keyjuan's in the port, I'm like, whoa, okay, we're serious here with what's going on.
Looking ahead a little bit, how do we dissect who could be the starters next season? I mean, I feel confident that if Lyons were to stay, he would be FIU's top back at this very moment heading to next season. But the offensive line, bro, I have no idea. The wide receivers, again, I have no idea. Who do you think would be at this very moment? Because, again, I'm guessing FIU will sign some quarterbacks as well as maybe even get a transfer or 2 here and there. You know, Kevin, I hear Caden Salter available. So you never know. You never know. I'm just saying. But who are some spots that from existing players here at FIU who have not entered the transfer portal yet that you think could be competing for a starting spot next season?
Well, I think the one that we're going to look at is quarterback. You have 3 guys who all played at some point. Well, 2 of them played. 2 out of the 3 played. But Clayton D's just now going to be a he was redshirt. He didn't play at all. So We'll see. That's definitely what I'm looking at. Offensive line will certainly be interesting because I don't know who's staying, who's coming back.
No.
They're going to have to get 5 new offensive linemen to start for FIU.
Wow.
Week 1 against the FCS opponent. Yes, it is an FCS opponent. Week 1 at Pitbull Stadium. And then I'm looking at wide receiver. We have Juju Lewis. That's still a position that's really good for FIU. Eric Nelson, who didn't play at all last season. Luby Maurice Jr. I'm very, very high on. I think that's about it. And then Juju Lewis is going to be the main guy next season.
Mm-hmm.
We have Kai Sanat, Shaborn Demps.
There you
we
go.
have him still here. Devontae Lyons. I think on the defensive side, it's still pretty encouraging. You still have a Quaylen Hill, you still have a Keegan Davis. Eddie Walls has yet to enter the portal. I don't think he will. You still have Dwight Nuno, who redshirted this season, so he'll be back. Josiah Taylor. So, like, they still have a lot of pieces. Bobby Sala, you have Antonio Patterson, Shamir Sterling. Like, that's still a group that's going to be returning for the most part. So, you're kind of looking at it this from the offensive side of things. Like, all right, this is where you're going to make the most of your adjustments. This is where you're likely going to see the most movement in the portal, where you're going to add. And then you're going to remote your recruits that you're going to bring on the defensive side of the ball are just going to supplement, whatever you lost, and you're going to get some more depth. But you're also going to have to bring in some transfer portal players. And the one thing I'm going to be very interested is whenever this new coach comes, are they going to recruit transfers from the Division I level, former Power 5 guys that were just not playing? It could come down to the G5, build their stock up, like we see with the Middle Tennessee with Omari Kelly and what Liberty did with Caden Salter. Or are they going to do what Coach Mack was doing, going to the JUCO level, going to the D2 level, like bringing in a Travion Barnes, a Donovan Manuel?
Yeah.
So, that's not a bad strategy what Coach Mack did. Obviously, it's got really good players. Manuel, Desmond Washington to a certain extent. Eric Rivers was like the lone case of like the Division I transfer. So, different ways to look at it. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how they're going to fill out the roster. But if I had to tell you a position, quarterback and offensive line are the two I'm looking at right now, because you never know. All of a sudden, you bring in a really good quarterback, and these guys are going to have to compete for a spot. And there's already going to be competition to begin with. I'm also looking forward to, and this is a question you asked, who will be the wide receiver one at FIU football? I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be. I genuinely don't. And I don't think there's going to be one. Maybe Juju Lewis. Juju Lewis was getting it going before his injuries. So that'll be an interesting one to see. Thankfully, I do think tight end is pretty secure right now. So we'll see what happens there.
All I know is that the FIU fandom is so desperately hungry for a bowl game. But, Kevin, I'm starting to what's the right word here? I'm starting to be concerned about whoever this new head coach is at FIU. His job of getting a worthwhile complete roster ready for week 1 against an FCS team is going to be so utterly difficult, because the amount of talent that just left FIU is just utterly ridiculous. And Kevin, it's one of the reasons, generally speaking, why people either love or hate the transfer portal. I mean, we've spoken with Eric Henry a few times, and his thoughts on the transfer portal and how much he loathes it for G5 teams such as FIU that obviously can't compete NIL money-wise with the P4 teams, in the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, etc. And, I mean, just look what it's done to this FIU team that had potential with a 4-8 record. Now, how confident are you, regardless of who it will take the head coaching spot, that this team can turn things around in basically less than a year and not just compete for a bowl game, compete to get back to a 4-8 record, Kevin?
It's going to be a tough one. And again, by no means I'm going to say FIU is going to make a bowl game next season. I don't know what the roster will look like, but if I had to guess, they're probably going to be one of the lower end Conference USA teams. Now, again, I hope they prove me wrong, because, again, as Emmett was mentioning just a little bit ago, this is a defense that's still pretty good with what is still left. So maybe that's enough. Maybe you bring in a quarterback that could stay consistent, just like Keon was. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, this is a coach, hopefully, that brings in some of the recruits he had committed from his past destination. Tim Harris, UCF. Those are pretty good recruits. So we'll see what happens. I mean, there's certainly a lot to be excited about. I'm very excited whoever the coach is going to be. It's a new voice. It's a new strategy. It's a lot of new. And then there's a lot of uncertainty, which is fair, because you don't know what's going to happen next season. We're going to go into spring camp, day 1, new head coach, and what returner are we going to talk to on the offense?
I don't know.
Like Devontae Lyons is going to be the main guy. So I don't know. It's going to be fun. I'm excited nonetheless. So
I am.
It'll be interesting, because these players have to prove themselves too, and it's gonna feel very weird.
I said this back when we talked about the breaking news of Coach Mack getting fired, but whoever does become the head coach here at FIU will have a university that's set in the biggest high school football market on the planet, and I personally think the best high school football mark on the planet here in South Florida. You'll have a football program off the field is ready to be on the big stage with the uniforms and the fields and this Pitbull Stadium branding. You'll have, I think, whoever the head coach is will have everything they need to build a winning culture here at FIU. But when you stick in NIL and the transfer portal, that will make this extremely, extremely difficult. And even worse than that, even if they are able to build a winning culture here at FIU, it's probably going to take time, Kevin, which the FIU fans, the alumni, I don't think they have their patience has run very thin from the back-to-back 4-8 seasons. And they might have very high expectations of, we need to win a bowl game now. We need to go to a CUSA championship game now. We need to get into the 12-team college football playoff now. I don't know if it's going to happen in a first year where you're pretty much going to have a brand new roster at stake.
It won't, but that's fine. We'll see what happens. And who knows? Maybe it's never going to be an Indiana situation specifically, but it could be something similar to where FIU has enough transfers with experience that'll come in and get things going. And you never know. Maybe you're finding yourself 6-6. 5-7, which was an improvement.
I think it's about time to wrap up here, Kevin. Do you have any final thoughts on the absolute headache that has been these last 24 hours?
No, but FAU just announced their coach. It'll be Coach Kitley, Zach Kitley. So that's their new coach that we'll be seeing at FIU next season, taking on in the Shula Bowl. Shula Bowl, two new coaches.
And by the way, shout out to the Cover 3 podcast, giving us a shout out on their most recent episode. That was fun to see, Kevin. And speaking of episodes, episode 76, probably going to be around the corner. I think it's time we maybe take a break away from football, maybe get to the hardwood, talk some FIU men's basketball. What say you?
Yeah, I agree.
I think we're gonna have a cool guest for that. But until then, thanks so much, everybody, for the coverage during these 24 hours and what you and I have done, and the fans, we appreciate it. And again, when that interim head coach, or not interim, when the new head coach is named, we're going to be there immediately, giving our thoughts and reactions to it. It's going to be nuts, Kevin. But I think we're ready for it.
I'm excited.
We're 2 years old as far as this pod goes. I think we're ready for whoever's going to be the new coach. We'll be there for their initial presser. There and everything else with that. I think it's going to be hectic. I can already tell you that, Kev, because it was when Mike McIntyre was named the coach all that time ago, working with Johnny and Panther now. But I think it's going to be fun.
I'm excited. Whoever it is, I'm excited. Can't wait. It should be pretty fun.
All right. For Kevin and myself, saying so long for now. And Paws!